Her knees buckled as the train's whistle shrieked, two overstuffed suitcases slipping from her grip onto the crowded platform. Strangers brushed past without a glance. Panic welled in her chest until one man, a single dad with a little boy clutching his hand, stepped forward. His next move changed everything. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. "Ma'am, let me help you with those," the man said, his voice firm but kind. His name was Ethan Hayes, early 30s. Hair still damp from the drizzle outside, his son's tiny backpack slung over his shoulder. The woman, Rachel Miller, clutched the suitcase handle tighter, defensive instinct rising. "It's fine, really," but her voice cracked. She hadn't eaten all day, and the weight of everything, luggage, exhaustion, life itself, was pressing too hard. Ethan crouched, setting his son's hand gently on his shoulder. "Hold on to me, buddy. Let's help the lady." Little Oliver, no older than 6, nodded eagerly. "We can carry things, Dad." Rachel blinked, a tear threatening to spill. "You don't even know me." "That doesn't matter," Ethan said simply. "You need help. That's enough." As he lifted the suitcase, veins straining against his forearm, Rachel's heart thudded. Not because of the weight, but because nobody had stepped up for her in years. Not since her husband left, leaving her with nothing but debts and a daughter to raise alone. She whispered, "Thank you." The train screeched to a halt, doors sliding open. People surged forward, impatient and restless. In the middle of it, Ethan steadied her suitcase, guided her daughter's stroller onto the platform, and shielded them both from the push of the crowd. Rachel looked at him then, really looked at him. There was weariness in his eyes, yes, but also something steady, unshaken. A quiet strength she hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. "Why would you stop for me?" she asked over the roar of passengers. Ethan glanced at Oliver, who grinned up at Rachel. "Because one day, I'd want someone to do the same for my kid. That's reason enough." Rachel's throat tightened. She didn't know then, couldn't know, that Ethan wasn't just some tired single dad. He was someone whose past would crash into hers in a way that would shake both their worlds. The train lurched forward, its metallic groan echoing through the narrow cars. Rachel clutched the handrail with one hand, her daughter's stroller with the other. Ethan steadied the suitcases. His son Oliver pressed close to his side. The four of them ended up together in the corner by the sliding doors. Rachel's pulse hadn't slowed since the platform. She could still feel the sting of strangers' eyes on her, the humiliation of being invisible one second and pitied the next. But Ethan's presence, solid, unshakable, cut through the noise. "Are you headed far?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Rachel hesitated. She wasn't sure if she should answer, but Oliver's curious blue eyes softened something inside her. She managed a shaky smile. "Just across town. Starting over." "Again," Ethan nodded like he knew exactly what that felt like. "Starting over isn't easy, but sometimes it's the best thing you can do." Rachel's grip tightened on the stroller handle. Her daughter, Emily, barely 3 years old, stirred in her sleep, tiny curls pressed against the blanket. Rachel brushed them gently aside. "I've tried before. Feels like life keeps slamming the door on me." Ethan shifted the suitcase at his feet. "I've had doors slammed too. Lost my job last year. People don't look twice when you're a single dad. They think you're half a man without a woman by your side." Rachel's eyes flickered toward him, surprised at his bluntness. His jaw flexed as if the memory burned fresh. "What did you do before?" she asked quietly. "I worked construction," Ethan replied, voice low but steady. "Long hours, busted hands, paycheck barely enough for rent. When my ex walked out, she said I'd never make it as a father, that I'd break before Oliver turned 5. Guess she was wrong, he just turned 6. Oliver beamed proudly at his dad. "We eat cereal for dinner sometimes," he said with a child's innocent pride. "And Dad lets me stay up when we watch movies." Rachel's lips curved despite herself. "Sounds like a good dad to me," Ethan shrugged. "I try, but it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up. Every single day." Those words pierced Rachel like a blade wrapped in truth. Her ex-husband had done the opposite. Vanished when things got hard, leaving her drowning in bills. He didn't show up to birthdays, didn't call on Christmas. And here was this stranger, this man she'd just met, speaking as though responsibility was his blood oath. She swallowed. Emily's father. He didn't stay. The confession tumbled out before she could stop it. Her voice cracked, soft but raw, each word scraping against old wounds. Ethan didn't flinch, didn't give her pity. He just nodded once. Then he didn't deserve her. Or you. Rachel blinked rapidly, heat rising to her face. No one had ever said that to her. Not her parents, not her friends. They all said some version of, you should have chosen better, or just move on. But this man, this tired single dad holding her suitcase, gave her a truth she hadn't let herself believe. She wasn't worthless because someone left. The train rocked hard, jolting everyone sideways. Rachel stumbled, and Ethan caught her arm just before she collided with the metal pole. His grip was firm, grounding. For a fleeting second, their eyes locked. Something unspoken pulsed between them, a fragile current neither dared name. "Careful," he said softly, his hand lingering a moment too long before he let go. Rachel pulled her sleeve down, flustered. "Thanks." Oliver tugged his dad's jacket. "Dad, can we share snacks with Emily when she wakes up?" Rachel's head snapped toward him. "Oh no, sweetie, you don't have to." Ethan crouched to unzip Oliver's small backpack. "We've got more than enough." He pulled out a pack of crackers, a juice box and a granola bar, setting them gently on Rachel's stroller tray. Her throat tightened again. "I can't take that." "You're traveling too, you need it." But Ethan shook his head. "A few snacks won't hurt us. Might help you more." His gaze softened. "Sometimes it's not about what we have. It's about what we give." Rachel pressed her lips together, fighting back tears. "You're too kind for someone you just met." Ethan's voice dropped. "Kindness is free, but it can save lives." For a moment, the roar of the train faded. Rachel felt seen, truly seen, in a way she hadn't in years. Then from the far end of the car, a man's voice rose. "Rachel Miller." Her stomach turned to stone. The crowd shifted, and a tall man in a pressed suit pushed his way toward them, eyes locked on her. His jaw was sharp, expression colder than ice. Rachel froze, every nerve on edge. Her hands clutched the stroller so tightly her knuckles whitened. "No, not here," she whispered. Ethan caught the fear in her eyes instantly. He straightened, his body angling protectively between her and the man approaching. "You know him?" Rachel's breath hitched. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "That's my ex-husband." Ethan's chest tightened. The air around them thickened with tension. The man, slick, arrogant, radiating control, stopped a few feet away, eyes darting to the sleeping toddler in the stroller. "So this is where you ran," the man sneered. "Dragging my daughter through train stations like a beggar? Pathetic." Rachel's face burned. Her body shook, but she stood tall. "You lost the right to call her yours the day you walked away." The man's eyes narrowed, lips curling into a cruel smile. "We'll see about that. Court papers are coming." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides, every instinct screaming to defend the woman and child behind him. His voice came out low, steady but edged with fire. "She doesn't need your poison. Step back." The man laughed bitterly. "And who are you? Another charity case she picked up on the street?" The words sliced through Ethan like glass, but he didn't move. He planted himself like a wall, his son gripping his jacket, watching silently but bravely. Rachel's pulse pounded in her ears. The weight of humiliation and fear pressed heavy, but for the first time, she wasn't alone. Someone stood beside her. The train screeched into the next station. The man glared one last time, then turned sharply and shoved through the doors, vanishing into the crowd. Silence clung to the air long after he left. Rachel's legs nearly gave out, but Ethan steadied her again, his touch warm and certain. "You okay?" he asked softly. Tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't know. But thank you. No one's ever stood up for me like that." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Get used to it. You're not alone anymore." Rachel's breath caught. She didn't know what the future held, but something had shifted on that train. And deep down, she sensed this wasn't just a chance encounter. It was the beginning of a fight, of redemption, of something bigger than either of them could see. The train slowed as it entered the city, lights flickering across the windows. Rachel's heart still hammered from the encounter. Her ex's cold sneer haunted her like a shadow that refused to leave. She wrapped her arms around Emily's stroller handle as though her touch alone could shield her daughter from the world. Ethan kept his eyes on her, steady and unshaken, even though inside he was boiling. He hated men like that, men who abandoned and then returned only to wound. He wanted to tell her he wouldn't let that man near her again, but he bit back the words. It wasn't about promises. It was about showing up just like he'd told her. Oliver tugged his father's sleeve, breaking the silence. "Dad, are we still going to Grandma's?" Ethan bent down, brushing his son's hair. "Yeah, buddy. Just a quick stop first." Rachel forced a smile, trying to hide the tears still wet on her cheeks. "You don't have to stay with us. You've already done more than anyone else ever has." Ethan straightened, eyes locking with hers. "And what? Leave you shaken, dragging those bags, with him waiting around the corner?" "No, Rachel. That's not happening." The words landed heavy, almost foreign to her ears. No one had ever stayed. Not her ex, not her so-called friends. But this stranger she'd known for less than an hour was standing taller than anyone in her life ever had. The train screeched to a halt at the downtown station. Crowds spilled out, voices echoing against the tiled walls. Ethan hoisted her suitcase without asking, Oliver grabbing his father's free hand. Rachel pushed Emily's stroller, her body trembling, but her chin lifted. They moved together through the station, side by side, like a small unit carved out of chaos. Outside, night had settled deep over the city. Neon lights flickered against puddles on the street. Taxis honked, buses hissed, and people streamed past in waves. Rachel stopped beneath the awning of a cafe, breathing hard. "This is me," she whispered. "The shelter's just around the corner." Ethan froze. "The shelter?" Her shoulders hunched. Shame flushed through her veins. I don't have anywhere else. My ex drained everything. Rent savings gone. I'm starting over from nothing." Oliver looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes. "But you have Emily. That's not nothing." The child's simple words broke something inside her. Tears streamed down her face before she could stop them. She crouched, cupping Oliver's cheek. "You're right. She's my everything." Ethan's throat tightened. He had seen pride swallowed before, but never with such quiet strength. This wasn't weakness, it was survival. "Come with us," he said suddenly. Rachel blinked. "What? Don't go to the shelter tonight. I've got a couch, a roof that doesn't leak, food in the fridge. It's not much, but it's safe." Her instinct screamed to refuse. She barely knew him. But Emily stirred in the stroller, fussing, tiny fists rubbing at her eyes. Rachel looked down at her daughter, then back at Ethan. His eyes weren't desperate or demanding. "Just honest, solid, why?" she whispered. Ethan shrugged. "Because I know what it feels like to have no one step forward. And I won't let you feel that again." For a long moment, Rachel stood in silence, torn between fear and the fragile thread of trust. Then she nodded, voice trembling. "Okay." Ethan's apartment was small, worn at the edges, but warm. Toys littered the corner of the living room, dishes stacked neatly in the drying rack. It smelled faintly of laundry detergent and something homemade lingering in the air. Rachel sank onto the couch, Emily asleep again in her arms. Ethan set her suitcases down and disappeared into the kitchen, reappearing with 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to her. "Here, it's not fancy, but it helps." Her fingers brushed his as she took it, the warmth seeping into her cold skin. She murmured, "Thank you." They sat in quiet, the only sound Oliver humming softly as he played with toy cars on the rug. Rachel watched the little boy, then glanced at Ethan. "You're raising a good kid," she said softly. Ethan's lips twitched into a tired smile. "He's the best part of me." Rachel hesitated, then whispered, "Do you ever wish you had someone by your side? Someone who stayed?" His gaze lingered on her, the weight of unspoken truths heavy in the room. "Every day," he admitted, "but I'd rather be alone than with the wrong person. Oliver deserves better than that." Her chest ached at the honesty. "I wish I'd thought like that sooner." "Don't blame yourself for his choices," Ethan said firmly. "He left, that's on him. The fact you're still here, still fighting for Emily, that's on you. That's strength." Rachel swallowed hard, emotion tightening her throat. No one had ever called her strong. She always felt like the opposite, like she was just barely holding it all together. But hearing it from him, it felt true. Before she could reply, there was a knock at the door, loud, demanding. Rachel stiffened instantly. Ethan rose, shoulders tense. He opened the door, just a crack, and froze. Her ex. The man's polished shoes glistened in the hallway light, his smirk sharp. I knew she'd crawl somewhere like this. Step aside, Ethan's jaw clenched. You're not welcome here. The man's eyes flicked past him, locking on Rachel. Still running, Rachel? Still hiding like a coward? Rachel stood, trembling but defiant. I'm not hiding. I'm protecting my daughter. Something you've never done. His smirk twisted into a sneer. You think this deadbeat can protect you? He can barely feed his own kid. Ethan's voice cut through, calm, but firm as stone. Maybe, but I'll never abandon them. That's more than you can say. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel's ex faltered, his confidence cracking for the first time. He muttered something under his breath, then turned sharply and stalked down the hall, slamming the stairwell door behind him. Rachel collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Ethan closed the door and leaned against it, chest heaving. You okay? He asked, softer now. Rachel nodded slowly, tears streaming unchecked. I think, for the first time in a long time, yes. She looked at him then, really looked at him, the single dad who had carried her bags, shared his son's snacks, stood like a wall when she was at her weakest. She whispered, You didn't have to step forward. But you did. Why? Ethan's eyes softened, his voice steady. Because sometimes the right people come into your life when you least expect it. And if you're lucky, you don't let them go. Rachel's heart pounded. She didn't know what tomorrow held. Court battles. Bills, endless fights, but tonight, for the first time, she felt hope. Emily stirred in her arms. Oliver leaned sleepily against his dad. And Rachel realized this wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of something new, something stronger, braver, and filled with the kind of kindness that could change everything. And as she whispered goodnight, she believed, maybe for the first time, that she and Emily weren't alone anymore.